This is your market update for Monday, August 3rd. All right, let's get started with the S&P cash daily chart. Now, the last real decision we had on this was we had time and price at this last low. So if you did take what would have been considered a counter trend trade, what should you be doing? Well, trailing up stops as you go. Why? Because the 513 is still in a sell mode. But we are slightly back above the 50, which is a positive. But you don't have everything lined up for a continued rally, though. What I do want you to watch very carefully will be the dates of the 4th through the 7th. I cannot run the histogram just yet because we only have 0, 1, 2 bars up rather than 3, so I'm not going to run that. But you do have some outright cycles to look at. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 that come in between the 4th, 5th. And then you have a couple more that come in the 6th, 7th. So I'm just kind of listing that as a zone. So as the market trades higher into timing, what do? Again, just ratchet up stops if you did take a trade against that last time and price low. All right, let's see what else we can do here. As far as the S&P futures, we do have areas of resistance that I want you to watch still carefully because of the 513. And here we're also below the 50, but they don't really come in until, well, we do have a 786 or two 786s with a 1272, 75.66 to 79, though I would consider this symmetrical projections slightly more important. Again, it doesn't mean that they're going to definitely get there or it's definitely going to hold, but typically symmetry is a really important decision. So I want you to watch these areas on the way up and be prepared for a possible failure around those next cycles. All right, let's look at, well, as far as the 120-minute chart, you can see that we're up at some resistance here on the 120. But I will, on Sunday, set up the pullback for you, okay, depending on where we're at, Sunday afternoon. I'll see if we're getting more of a pullback or not. And then as far as NASDAQ, all right, so here's the daily chart. Now, what's interesting about this is that these swings here, 0, 1, 2, okay? 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2. Now, we could trade up maybe for a third day, and it would still be, in a time window to watch for a possible failure. But you have to realize if we start rallying for maybe 4 or 5 trading days from this last low, that's going to be an indication that this last low is more important. But we don't have that yet. Right now, all we have is a rally that's similar to some of these prior rallies where we do want to watch for a possible failure. And as far as the timing, now it's slightly different here on NASDAQ. I have August 3rd, 4th, so Monday, Tuesday, plus or minus a day to watch for a possible failure. Also, we have the time symmetry today because this is 0, 1, 2, or 2 bars up. All of these are the same, 2 trading days up. So again, be prepared for a possible failure with both, this early timing next week and the fact that we have that time symmetry, okay? Maybe it'll continue to rally, but just be aware so you know when to pivot. And, if the market doesn't continue to do what you want it to do, be prepared to pivot. All right, how about the September contract here? I'd say I don't really have any solid resistance on this time frame chart until like that 289.01 to 289.79 area, or 293.01 to 293.72, and so on. But if we look at the 120-minute chart, we're going to see some areas of resistance that are a bit closer. And then also, I already have some of these, pullback areas to look at. So, for example, we have a symmetry decision right now. That's 280.75-ish, and then we also have this cluster here between 277.83 to 279.01. That would be interesting because we have some nice symmetry there, plus a couple of the 618 retracements, probably the larger low to high, and also the higher low to the high. That's where those 618s come from. So those are some areas to watch. Well, Sunday or Monday. And let's see what else we have. As far as IWM, so we did trade a little bit lower in IWM, and I'm not going to call this a perfect hit because it looks like the high end of support is 287.70, but 287.83 is the actual low. That's absolutely close enough, to where you can look at it trade, okay? And what we do want to watch on the flip side, since we are still at this moment below the 50 and the 5 and 13 are in a sell mode. So areas that I do want you to watch on the way up, definitely the areas around the symmetry or area around the 618 retracement, okay? But yes, we do have a key decision here. It's just that it's going to be considered counter trend because if you look at this pattern, it's lower lows and lower highs, okay, until it shifts. I mean, it's not going to shift on the daily until up here, though it probably has shifted at least in the short term on the lower time frame charts. Yeah, just a little bit on that 30-minute. As far as the diamonds, we had retested symmetry support. We have not yet taken out the 786 by a decent margin, but if we do clear it, we're more likely to head up towards this target that we have off of this high-low swing. And then don't forget we have another target off of the major swing that we never took out that comes in at 536.91 to 537.39. Okay, so those are some parameters in the diamonds for you. And then let's take a look at Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, a little bit sloppy here, but I do have two areas that stand out. 61,970 to 62,385. 61,3. Wait, did I do this one? 61,382 to 61,385. So, they're both setups because the second one includes symmetry plus a 618. So because it includes symmetry, it is a setup by itself. Then we also have, the cluster here with symmetry and 1618 extension. So those are the next decisions in Bitcoin. But if we trade much below that, it could get ugly. Why? You're below the 50, 5 and 13 is falling back to the downside. So let's see if this support holds or not. If it doesn't, it kind of opens the door for a lot more on the downside. So let's run that low to high. Yeah, which means potential would be to down here, 55, 335 area. All right, let's get rid of these levels. We don't need those. Okay, and then we have our other charts. Now, I gave you this in advance after earnings, because I wasn't really sure, if any of this stuff was going to show up on today's chart, because, like I said, I do not use the overnight data because it really mucks up the intraday charts. So anyway, but we had this area to start with, 299.37 to 300.92. Now, not everybody understands the way that you're supposed to make money with this work, and it is setup plus trigger equals trade entry, and then you manage it. So for example, this is a setup zone. Okay, we have symmetry and we have a 618. You can see that these swings were kind of similar, 43.65 versus 44.57, and then there's another one back over here on the left. That was 45.20. Okay, so again, similarity in swings. But what do you do with that? Well, I'm going to show you. So let's say that you were just looking at it for maybe a day trade. You see that that general support held. Where's your trigger? Okay, well, we hit the support, we held the support, and here's where it started to shift. Here's where you started to have, you took out a prior swing high over here, and here's where you had the 8 cross above the 34. Now, if you wanted to be a buyer at that point, you could, and your stop would be either under that support cluster I gave you, or at least underneath the low that was made prior to the buy signal. Okay, so far it looks like you would have had, a nice day trade off of that area. Did it kick in for a swing trade entry? Certainly not on this 30-minute chart. So again, you can use daily levels for day trade decisions. Okay, that's a perfect example of that. All right, and then we have, let's see, Amazon. So Amazon, if you remember, our weekly support was retested. It looked like garbage for a while, but earnings took it back in the right direction for a hold of this support. And there is still potential for an upside target to the 292.98 area, okay, because we did hold. As far as the daily chart is concerned, again, this was a retest. When we were testing the zone, it wasn't in good shape. Technically, we were below the 200. We were below the 50. The 5 and 13 was in a sell mode. Now, I always tell you that earnings is a crapshoot. And it absolutely is, because I don't know if it's going to help continue, to have one of my setups work, or if it's going to flip the other way. That's why, typically I'm going to tell you that if you're going to do something through earnings, that know what your risk is. If you have a small options position and you're okay with the risk, fine. But this is also where you can get your head ripped off, when you have a move like this, right? Anyway, in the bigger picture, I gave you that higher target, but there's also some smaller targets from this prior high to low. Okay, the 1618 or target 2 is 277.81. You also have another lower target off of the smaller swing, the lower high to this lowest low. Okay, and then the target off the full move remains at 292.98. Then we have Google. Now, Google has held the weekly support nicely. All right, there's symmetry plus a 382. But to fail or not to fail is your next question, because we have symmetry resistance right here, 359.97, and a 50% that overlaps that. Okay, so that's a resistance decision. Now, if we can start pushing through it, in the bigger picture, there is potential, off of this. Getting my arrows here. From there to there, and that would give you the potential upside target. But again, we don't know if it's going to clear resistance or not. So take it from one decision to the next. And here's what it looks like on a daily chart. This is where we have quite a bit of resistance between 357.86 to 363.71 area. All right. There's two symmetry projections, two retracements, and a 618 retracement. And note that the last timing I gave you was either the 23rd, 24th, or 26th, 28th. Actual low was made on the 23rd. So then I ran timing from the last low for the next possible high, and it's given me anywhere between 7:31 today to like Tuesday. Okay, so we're gonna, let's see. Yeah, again, so we have some time and price coming together. Now, do I know that it's definitely going to trigger a short for you? No, but I want you to watch for that potential opportunity. And then we have Nvidia. So Nvidia is still holding above some nice symmetry on the weekly chart. Okay, after you had a little bit of a rally off, we had a retest. We're so far holding it. If we continue to hold above it, what's our potential? Well, in the bigger picture, if this last low remains intact, there's still potential for this target. But does the market look good at this point? And I can't say yes. If you're looking at a micro chart, you're going to see maybe, a pattern of higher highs and higher lows, on a 5-minute chart. But the daily still looks like a little bit of garbage, because we have the 513 in a sell mode, and you're below the 50. We have resistance that we have to watch for possible failure. Why is this so hard to... Let me just move this selection a little bit. Okay, so we have the first area, 204.66 to 205.08. Then you have 206.43. If you want to make this the full zone, then it's 204.66 to 206.43 to watch for possible failure. Okay, so that's Nvidia. That's your next decision. Now, what if we hold this and then blow through this resistance? Well, then, you have an alternate scenario would be, well, we held this area, even though it was counter trend, then we'd look for a 1272 extension on the upside. But again, this is the area I want you to watch very carefully for a possible failure. Then we have Tesla. So Tesla, now on Tesla, I did have some timing on the weekly chart. We were within 1 week or 1 bar of that timing for possible low. Plus we have all this, you've got a lot of symmetry support underneath current levels. Now on the daily chart, actually we had a closer support decision at 298.49. We do still have a lot of support underneath. But again, this is a counter trend rally so far. Why? Because lower lows and lower highs, price below the 200, price below the 50 simple, 5 and 13 still in a sell mode. So again, if you're okay with a counter trend trade because you've seen a trigger on a lower time frame chart like this, we've finally got the 30-minute chart to cross back to the upside, then yeah, you can look at it if that fits your trading plan. It's just that it's not going to be in sync with the daily chart. If you'd rather look for a trend sell setup, I would have you look at, symmetry either here, 320.03, 327.43 to 329.35, and so on. So there are definitely going to be some areas of resistance on the way up. And on the buy side right now is, it's an uphill battle. So yes, there's time and price there, but again, how much can you expect when it's counter trend like this? Gold. Gold, I still don't have anything awesome in gold, okay? I have to continue to look at where we're at with the averages, and we're below the 200, we're below the 50, and the 5 and 13 are in a sell mode. So I would not be surprised if we got a smash down into lower support here. Now, I don't have an exact setup for you at this point, so, that we might be able to show you on an intraday chart, but I'm just trying to give you a little bit of the bigger picture. Also, if we do get a smash down, know that I have timing the 3rd through the 6th for a possible low. Okay, but yeah, we're not quite there yet. Actually, let me just get rid of this one here. Okay, and then how about, oh yeah, the outright cycles I also had were the, looks like the 3rd through the 5th. Okay, how about silver? Silver, yes, we did have a setup at the 59.59 to 59.94 area. If you get the full move, such a shallow pullback, its first target is 56.13, second target is 55.19. But a bigger picture target off of this low to high swing comes in at 53.29. Okay, so still have to also run that target. And again, below the 200, below the 50, 5 and 13 in a sell mode. I really can't get too excited about the buy side. These areas, if you wanted to look at a counter trend trade, maybe on the first test of this zone, maybe you get a day trade off of it. But again, it's not going to be in sync with the higher time frame, which is better. I mean, if you can have, the daily charts in a bearish mode and the intraday charts in a bearish mode, trade on the sell side, okay? Those of you who still love to look at counter trend trades, at least you have some parameters you can look at. As far as crude, we're still looking at September. All of the averages are on the side of the bulls here. Above the 200, above the 50, 5 and 13 still in a buy mode. And if we take out this 618 retracement, it opens the door for a potential upside target at 97.78. Then we have TLT. I did some extra timing work on this one today. What's interesting is that we have some time symmetry coming up on August 6th, where we would have 29 bars down and 29 bars down. But I do have 1, 2, 3, 4 cycles from some relatively large swings that come in the 10th through the 12th. So I want to watch those dates very carefully for a possible bounce. And again, it is going to be counter trend. Now I also ran the histogram, and the histogram, I think it's from this last high here, is giving me August 3rd, August 5th. So again, it's calling for a potential bounce maybe between now and, first early next week. But because this is still a bearish chart, we will run the resistance for you if and when the market does bounce. Then, last but not least, Micron. We're a little bit short of this 382. I guess if I left it up the 618, it probably would have been in like an official cluster here. But yeah, we went through that by a bit. 921.81. Let's see what the actual high is. $930.88. Yeah, I mean it's not that close. It's you know, since it's a pretty high price stock, you know, it didn't quite get close enough for me to call that a hit. But we have to look at the fact that we're failing at symmetry. We have to look at the fact that price is below the 50 and the 5 and 13 are in a sell mode. So if that last high is more important, the potential on the downside becomes the 1272 extension, which comes in at 685.38. But yeah, you would also watch these pullbacks, but again, counter trend. So just keep that in mind and know what the potential is. And when the 513 is in a sell mode, we are still vulnerable to the downside. You know, this is not always going to keep us on the right side, but it is absolutely helpful. I mean, look where it turned, where we had this beautiful rally with the 513 in a buy mode until here. And ever since then, it's trended downwards. Okay. So it's not, you know, you're not going to get, 100% on anything, but this is definitely helpful. And that's pretty much it. I hope the trigger examples help you guys, for those of you who need help. And again, if you have any questions for me personally, please post them in the room because I do come in and look at that every day. All right, we'll see you then. Have a great weekend.